Let's take a gander at the fantasy basketball waiver wire. The added players, the dropped players, the bad, the good, the indifferent, and the legend, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I would like my exact change back, you filthy animal. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky at joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_Beeble, on TikTok at redrock_Beeble, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. FanDuel is here. Well, it's always been here, but the NFL playoffs are almost here. But it is not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because new customers right now can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Also, check out LockedOnDaily.com and sign up for your favorite team's newsletter, LockedOnDaily.com. But while you're doing that, do not write a single comment on this show. I don't want it. I don't want to hear your opinions. They're probably wrong anyway. So don't even bother putting anything down in the comments that was completely unnecessary and uncalled for. We're here to talk about the waiver wire in fantasy basketball, the different little segments that we do. Only 3 games on Sunday, and then we go into a completely unnecessary 14-game Monday. It's because of Christmas Eve. Yes, it is still unnecessary to have 14 games on, but that's okay. It's okay. Let's talk about the most added players on the fantasy basketball waiver wire, using a little different time frames here. Wasn't shocked at all to see that the most added players on Basketball Monster, I'm using a 48-hour reporting period there. Number 1 is Dylan Brooks, and number 2 is Andrew Nembhard. That is largely because of the fact that those two guys have starter roles, and there's only 6 teams that play on Sunday. And even though this is a 48-hour reporting period, because there were 12 games on Saturday, there wasn't as much waiver activity going on. So that makes sense. Nembhard and Brooks firmly sit to me on the fringes of 12-team leagues, whereas if you've got a roster and they're on it, I'd go, yeah, okay. Yeah, makes sense. But if they're on your waiver, I'd also look at them and go, yeah, that's fine, whatever. Like, they just sort of sit there. You use them when the schedule makes sense, and it does make sense. For the Pacers in particular, 6 games in the next 9 game days. That's big. And he played 33 minutes a game, and he might get 12 and 4 or something, which is useful. Not denying that. That probably should be on a roster, at least in the short term. But Dylan Brooks, you know what's going to happen. 14 points, 3 points, 11%, 80%, 3 steals, no steals. It's going to be all over the shop, but it makes sense there. On Yahoo, which is a tighter less than 24-hour window in terms of the reporting, 2 guys that, again, they've got sizable roles and seem to be outsized in terms of their recent rankings. The most added guys there, which actually, to be honest, the most added players on Yahoo were actually Brooks and Nembhard as well, but I'm not going to double up on that. I'm going to go to the next 2, and they're both O names. Obi Toppin and Ochai Agbaji. Toppin has been somehow cooking in like 22 minutes a night through elite efficiency, bumped up usage. He's actually getting some defensive stats, which I don't think is a real thing, but he's doing it, right? So he is useful enough, and again, like Nembhard, the Pacers' schedule makes sense. And the next one is Ochai Agbaji. I really do not think Agbaji is going to be able to maintain long-term value. Every time something happens, and maybe it keeps happening, every time he has a good game, it's because there are 2 players out and he shoots 70%. Now, they're still going to have no Quickly and no Pirtle. You're going to have Barrett. He's returning from his illness, but like, who knows? Agbaji's fine as a stream guy, but that is about it. And then on Fantrax, which uses a 7-day reporting period, which I think is actually too long in the sense of fantasy basketball. It gives us some weird ideas. But the number 1 most added player there is Passion Pop Justin Champagny, the Wizards guy, which, as you have seen, if you have looked at the game log, and before Corey Kispert's returned, he is quickly moving on the Haywood Highsmith plan. And that is, you start, and then you go down in minutes, then you drop down in minutes, and maybe, not yet, he hasn't done this yet, maybe you get a DMP. By the way, Haywood Highsmith also in the middle of that at the moment. He got benched last game, he played like 8 minutes. It's coming. This is the most common thing. It happens every year. Happens multiple times a year, and I don't know why. Anyway, Justin Champagny. If you want to drop Justin Champagny, like I have said with Justin Champagny all along, it's great what he's doing, but there are 4 players out, or 3, and 3 of them play his rotation position. And 2 of those are back. So it just seems incredibly unlikely to me that he would have kept doing what he was doing. If you want to drop Justin Champagnie, go ahead and do it. The next most added player on Fantrax was Drew Smith. And that is an interesting one because Smith started last game. With Butler out, they started him. And they moved Tyler Hero to the 2. And Smith really seems to be all up in Eric Spoelstra's, all up in his business at the moment, and he's getting 1 million steals. That is inflating his traditional ranking numbers. Smith is not doing much more than that, but yeah, at the moment, we love what Drew Smith is doing. And if I'm in a 14 team, he's an obvious ad. And he's giving at least a little bit more than even double onyx, diamond, titanium, platinum type value. He's doing a little bit more than that. But we've all our double onyxes here, even you triple onyxes, which I know you probably don't watch. You create your own podcast just in your head and you play them back to yourself. That's how good you guys are. But you've been on Drew Smith for a while. Me sort of in the double onyxes and the single onyxes, and the other guys, the rotten wood trash raccoons over here, we're also been talking about Drew Smith for a little bit of time. He's up at the moment. With the way that Spoelstra runs those rotations, I'm not going to be super confident that it does hold all the way through. What about the most drop players? On Basketball Monster, number 1 there is the Hong Kong mattress, Cason Wallace. We had some really strong caveats on Wallace. I said, look, let's add him because he's getting 28 a night, 28, 28, 30, 30, 31, 28, 28, 30. Okay, if he's out getting that, we love it. And then he's played like 20 and 22 the next 2 games. Cool. So you know what that means? You jack.
Get that garbage out of here.
I like Cason. I like the Hong Kong mattress. Easy. But he's not playing. See you later. Done. You'll also notice an abundance of champagnes on this list here. We had a family Christmas yesterday. Who's ready for a sidebar? Family Christmas yesterday, and my brother's house, and they brought out some champagne. Champagne, actual champagne from the region of Champagne. Yeah, okay, cool. That's nice, lovely. And then they brought out another one, and it was from Tasmania. But allegedly, there is an area in Tasmania, which I had not heard this. I'm gonna look this up. That the cartel of sparkling wine producers in the French region of Champagne have allocated an area of Tasmania that if you produce sparkling wine from that area of Tasmania, it can also now be called champagne, which is insane to me. Why is that? Is that real? It's mum, GH mum, apparently. I always used to call it mum. But anyway, apparently they can sell some from Tasmania that is called champagne, that's what I was told. But anyway, that's GH Mum Champagne is not one of the ones we're talking about. We've got Julian and Justin. And this is one of these things that happens in fantasy. And I always want to explain to you not how to live your life or how to play fantasy necessarily, because we all have our own ideas about all that sort of stuff. What I like to explain to you guys, and I probably do it a little bit too often, but that's okay. We have new people in all the time, is my philosophies. So that when I say something, you understand which direction and which lens it comes from. So often when I talk about players and I'm talking about their value, I'm not looking at what is going to happen in the next game. Some of the shows we do with that, the daily streaming shows, we're looking at that. But I'm thinking, hey, like in 3 weeks' time, is this going to be relevant at all? When I'm trying to look at overall value. Now, we have the mantra here. We chant it to ourselves, cross-legged, naked, with candles around us. Or, maybe that's me, but we say, get out ahead of it. We say it. I say it. You listen to it. Whatever. But understand, like, we've said it with Julian the whole time. It makes sense, but when Sohan's back, when Vassell is starting, he's not going to get enough playing time. Easy. And it just lasted like 8 weeks through an injury to Sohan. Then Vassell coming back and being slow and then going out again and then being slow and then being ramped up. And then they just stuck with him. And now it's reverted back to what we thought. And Champagnie, Julian, is not worth it. And if someone else gets hurt, that's the case with a lot of different players. We'll talk about the injury to Moe Wagner in Orlando later, but that's another one of those ones. I find it very hard to look at players and go, yeah, like this is good now, but like in 3 weeks' time, someone else might get hurt and that might elevate value, because I hate trying to predict an injury. It's really tough to do. In fact, it's actually literally impossible. So when we're talking about that, that's the lens that I come from on that. Well, Champagne, it's great. We'll use him now, but I don't see how it goes long term, and that's where we're at with it. And the same goes with Justin Champagnie, who was the most added player on Fantrax, and he's the most dropped player on Yahoo because he played like 17 minutes yesterday. Because he is fine, but he's not the priority, and he's not that good. And those things always tend to catch up. You just don't know when. Andre Drummond also the most dropped. He just barely played yesterday. He's also completely washed. The big avocado, I feel like he's been stored with a couple of bananas for too long. He's overripe. He's done. See you later. The most dropped players on Fantrax, Jared McCain, who I believe season is over. We don't have confirmation on that. And then, unfortunately, the most dropped player on Fantrax was Cole Anthony, which about this time last week, we said, hey, maybe Cole Anthony, with the absence of Franz Wagner, they're going to need Cole Anthony to get some usage in, to get some shots up, because no one else can create shots. And then he completely was dreadful and was sort of phased out of the rotation. And then, of course, he dropped almost 30 points in the game yesterday. So I'll talk a little bit about Cole later on. But, yeah, just that's sometimes it's unfortunate, isn't it? We've got more stuff to talk about. Bust roster guys, droppable players, injury replacements. We'll come back to that. But today's episode is brought to you by Skylight Frames. You know what it is? It is a digital photo frame. Skylight Frames is you put it on your desk, console, bench, table, hang it on your wall, and it just cycles through your photos. The display is crystal clear. Skylight delivers you two different sizes, a 10-incher and a big boy 15-incher that you can get up on your screen. And the way to load photos, it's so easy. Under 60-second setup, you get an app on your phone. You just add your photos on and bang, there they are. But you can get other people to get in on the action as well. So you've got family members far away and you're looking for a Christmas gift. It's so easy. You send them the Skylight Frame. Then you can have the login, or there's an email you can send the photos to, and you send them through. They approve the photos, and there they are on their photo frame, up in their pride of place on the mantle. Maybe that's the word I've been looking for all along. The mantle, which we don't really have mantles very much here in Australia, because we don't really have many fireplaces. Although we do, but just not as many as other places, because it's not as cold here. But that's okay, because Skylight Frame doesn't care about the weather. They care about photo frames and digital HD touchscreen photo frames. And they also care about giving you a limited time offer. $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. That is SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.nba. Okay, what is the next little part of a waiver wire show that we should go on to? We're going to talk about must roster players. I'm not necessarily talking about rest of season. I am looking at the next 2 to 3 weeks of guys who I think are sitting undervalued, who are just not rostered everywhere, and should be. Now, these numbers are always going to be hard to come up with because of the way that Yahoo, in their infinite wisdom, screwed us, screwed everybody. Well, they actually did screw a lot of people this season, honestly, with the way they rolled out the in-season tournament weeks, with the way they rolled out those misleading, hey, draft now banners, and locked people into 10-team points leagues that had no business being a part of that. And it screwed up all of the roster percentage numbers. They're all garbage now. You can't have any sort of reliability on them. So we do our best, but it's impossible. So all these guys, I can use our Basketball Monster roster metrics, and not everyone who watches this show is a Basketball Monster member. That's true. Right? Because I know, because I see questions and I see them all the time. So I look at Goga Badadze and his Basketball Monster roster number is 100. Because everyone that is in a league on that we track their rosters, he's rostered. Yep, makes sense. But he's only like 38 or 39 on Yahoo. And that seems like a big discrepancy. And this is where we talk about Moe Wagner, who tore his ACL yesterday and is out for the season. So, does it really change Moe Wagner? Obviously it changes Moe Wagner's season. That's unfortunate for him. Does it really change Goga that much? Yes and no. I'm not sure how many extra minutes he gets. Maybe 1 or 2, but maybe none at all. But what it does for Goga is it means that the floor has just jumped way up. Because our worry all along, and this is another one of those scenarios where Goga Badadze didn't really play. And then Wendell Carter went down and Goga started. And then Paolo went down. And then Goga and Wendell started together. And then Franz went down. And they had to give a lot of minutes to Goga. And we're worried about what happens when Paolo and Franz come back. Does Goga go back to third string? How does it all work? Well, it doesn't even matter anymore. Because when Paolo comes back and when Franz comes back, there's still only 2 centers there. It's Goga and it's Wendell Carter. And if you can get 26 minutes out of Goga, you can get 26 out of Wendell, and they split, they share 4 minutes together on the court, it's enough. And we might have to get to 33 a night of Goga here in the short term. So yeah, he's absolutely a must roster everywhere. But that's a lot of things that had to happen. And that's, again, talking to my philosophy of when I talk about things. When I said, I'm not sure if Goga's going to last all season. But I couldn't have sat there 6 weeks ago and said, yeah, it's going to be great because they're going to lose Paulo Franz and Moe Wagner, so you're going to be sweet and it's all going to be roses for Gogo the rest of the season. You can't do that, but if you did grab him and you had that confidence in him, it's worked out perfectly. But I'm just talking from an analysis point of view, the way that I phrase things. So me saying I don't think Gogo's going to last clearly was wrong, right? Very clearly wrong. But there are always reasons behind that stuff. So what it does here is it just means Gogo's floor is so far up. It's way up. So he's just got to be rostered everywhere. Ben Simmons has to be rostered everywhere as well. I know, I mean, you might find that distasteful. And even the other day, someone said, Josh, why would you say Ben Simmons is must roster? Well, the reason I would say that is because he is. I think that's really simple. He is the most obvious must roster player, possibly, of the season. Unless your league didn't draft like Dyson Daniels, this is just absolutely crystal clear must. Now, complete disclaimer. I have no idea what's going to happen to Ben Simmons tomorrow. Could his back seize up? Could he hurt his knee? Yes. Yes, very easily. All that stuff could happen. But you know what? We don't care. Who cares? Well, I'm sure you do if you're Ben Simmons and you're worried about his health. And we all should have worry for everyone's health in some respect. But you don't care. You add him off the waiver wire. You get everything you're getting at the moment, which might change when Cam Thomas comes back. Although I will say this. The best player to play alongside Cam Thomas is Ben Simmons. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Nick Claxton's good enough to limit Ben Simmons' minutes either, because he actually might be terrible. So, yeah, Simmons, there's no one that's really coming for those minutes at all. And he has played 30 minutes, around 30 minutes, 3 in a row. So maybe he can handle it. All in. Absolutely must roster Ben Simmons. And then when it stops, or honestly, and I can't believe I'm saying this, like if it stops, you move on. Easy ad. And if you want to debate it, drop it in the comments and I will immediately tell you you're wrong. Immediately. Add him. Kelly Oubre is also a must roster player, mainly because they are just absolutely pumping minutes into Kelly Oubre. Now, you may have different thoughts about pumping things into Kelly Oubre, but that is okay. But if he's playing 37 minutes a night, you can't leave him on the wire. Now, you know me. I have a famous, not really. Some of you may be slightly tangentially aware that I don't really like Kelly Oubre from a fantasy perspective. I don't like his game in a general rule. A guy that takes a lot of shots, not really efficient with it, doesn't do anything else, is not really my cup of tea. But what he is doing, he's getting a lot more rebounds at the moment. He's playing 1 million minutes because Jared McCain's out and Eric Gordon and Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry are all 100% washed and Caleb Martin's not good and KJ Martin's not good and Gershon Yabusele's fallen off. There's a lot there for Oubre. Just must roster. I'll put Tari Eason on this list because he is sitting at a low roster percentage. He has been dropped because the injury is not good, and before that, there were some struggles. Now, this could easily become a not must roster scenario, but I'm not there at that point with him, so that's just, I think it's really straightforward. And the last name on this list, again, very similar to the Goga one, and it is possible to have multiple thoughts at once. I think that Yves Missi should be on rosters now without any question, but I'm considerably underwhelmed with what he is doing. Considerably. It's hard to find a better spot for him at the moment than what we're at. Daniel Tice is out with injuries, but that doesn't really matter. Ingram and Zion are both out, so we are starting Yves Missi. He's playing 33 minutes a night, and he's giving you 10 and 9 with a block, which is like the most mid shit ever. And that's where the worry comes in, because when Zion, if returns, and when Ingram returns, if they will want their best 5 players on the court, best 6 players, and that best 6 does not include Yves Missi. So they will go with Zion at center. They will go with Trey Murphy at center. They will go with Herb Jones at center. All that will happen, meaning that Missi will not play his 32 minutes a night, and he won't even be able to sniff your 10 and 9 that he's doing now. That is why I'm underwhelmed with Missi. For now, yeah, love it. Cool. Long term, I don't think it's going to be useful. But I don't know when that happens. It might not happen given the players in question. So for now, yeah, we like having Missi on our team. But, yeah, I'm always going to have that level of skepticism, and that can change. He could come out there and really start to be assertive and put up good games. But I haven't really seen that, have I? Maybe you have, but I haven't. We've got more to talk about. But today's episode is also brought to you by Built and Built Rewards. If you are renting, well, you're going to want to stop everything you're doing, unless that's paying the rent. And listen up. Well, actually stop paying the rent right now because you can get rewards on paying your rent. Serious perks come with paying that thing that you've got to pay every month, and it is completely free to join. You can earn built points on your rent and your everyday spending, and it's no extra cost. You redeem those points towards flights, hotels, and maybe even future rent payments. They've got over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels associated with the program, and other unique experiences which are exclusive to Built. So start earning points on rent that you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That is joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our link so that they know that we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. They don't want me to spell it out anymore. All right. Anyway, joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but you can still get some regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So many ways for you to pick up that W. You can look at an anytime touchdown scorer. You can look at points scored for each individual team. As always, the straight up money line, the spreads, the game total, other player stat props as well. It is all there over at FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com right now and go and sign up to get $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, let's go through the final bits and pieces here of the Waiver Wire show. And, you know, we love to do this. We talk about players that are droppable. Should I define what it means? It is a word in English that has a pretty definite meaning, and we are using that actual meaning here. And what that is like, you don't have to drop these guys. You don't. But I think that if you did, I wouldn't say you're a dummy. I wouldn't say, is there something wrong with you that you've dropped this player? That is what this list means. And these are guys who are all highly rostered, and I don't think they should be. So if you wanted to get rid of him, you can. But if you wanted to hold him, you can. The #1 player on this list is Deni Avdija. Now, Deni Avdija is, as I thought would be the case, not prioritized in Portland. I got many things wrong in Portland because I thought they would actually prioritize Scoot Henderson, but I guess not. But he is coming off the bench, Deni, alongside Scoot, alongside Klingon, Rob Williams, and there's not enough to do. He will have solid games. He will have bad games. But unless 2 starters, I believe, go out, he won't be an absolute must-roster lock. So you can view Deni however you want. Always remember, my Deni lens, I don't think he's that good. Others do. I don't, and that's okay. So when I'm looking at it going, yeah, but even when he does get, like, if other players go down and if and when, then he gets started, I don't think he's that good to capitalize at a super high level anyway. So I'm not that worried about not rostering him. But it is okay if you want to. But it's also okay if you want to drop him. Rui Hachimura, well, yep. Absolutely no reason to be rostering him, I don't think. Points leagues, you could make a marginal argument. 14-team leaguers, no worries. Do it, right? But in a 12-team league, this guy is getting absolutely flooded with minutes. And you still get 9 and 7? What do you get out of him? Mid-range 2s? Ooh. No. He's just not a good fantasy player, and I don't think he ever will be. The next name, it is very rough for me to put this name on this list after yesterday. But we're not just talking about one game. Because Jaden Ivey was excellent. What do you have, 28, 8 and 8 or something? Something along those lines. A very good game. And he's returned to the starting lineup, by the way. Asar Thompson. See you later, Asar. But Jaden Ivey's other 20 games have not been good. So, yeah. I would find it personally hard. If I had Jaden Ivey, I would not drop him after yesterday's game. Even that is a psychological barrier for me that is too far to push through. But when he goes back and has 14, 3 and 3 on 38% shooting with 72 from the line, then you go, yeah, what am I doing? Because there are times, what is it, that even a blind squirrel gets a nut? There are times when Jaden Ivey gets his nut. But it's not consistent enough. And we've seen it over and over again. So when you're getting the hard decision and you're like, I actually need to stream somebody in. I can use this roster spot and get 5 games versus 3. Or I really need to hit this category. Then Ivy sits there and goes, well, if he's my worst player, I'll see you later. I think it is also, again, relatively obvious that Jonathan Kuminga, who's had 2 cracks at being a foreseeable future starting legend, is just not going to do it. There will be moments when he looks better, but there are, again, like Ivy, but like so many of these players, there are very clear parameters for how John Kuminga is a good fantasy player. And the answer to that is, everybody else get out of the way, let's play losing basketball and allow him to have 27 usage in 32 minutes. And then he'll rack up big scoring numbers without a huge amount else. But guess what the Golden State Warriors, even though they're really struggling, guess what they're going to do? Not that. And we have ample evidence to tell you that they will not do that. Again, let's throw a bias out there. I am not in the camp of, I can't believe how the Warriors have ruined Kuminga. If he was on any other team, he'd be a star by now. I look at him and go, does this guy know what he's doing? I don't think he's very good. All right, that is how I look at John Kuminga. So when I see him constantly get benched or constantly put up terrible performances, I go, yeah, actually tracks, that makes sense. That's probably what I would do too. And that's what I would do in fantasy. And when he gets back to 30 minutes a night as a starter, if he does that again, then we re-add him. I just don't think it's a priority to hold. I'm also going to throw Dick here because Grady Dick has been fine when two of Barnes and Quickly and Barrett are out. When two of them play, well, he's a lower volume scoring player who doesn't do anything else. Barrett is returning today. Barnes is there. Quickly, I don't know how is he Tommy John, internal brace? What's he doing? I don't know, but he might be back soon. And then Dick will be the fourth option. He'll stand around, he'll hit some threes and be Toronto's... He can't be Toronto's Gary Trent because they've got a Gary Trent at home in Jacoby Walter. He might be there. I don't want to go completely racial stereotype here. Can he be there Duncan Robinson? He's more Duncan Robinson than Tyler Hero. And it's not worth a hold in a lot of spots. When players are out, we all love Dick. When players return, well, the value deflates. I also think that Jonas Valanciunas is a droppable player because they're just not playing him. And yes, I know that you will say, well, what if he gets traded somewhere? Okay. Who is trading for Valanciunas to be a starter? Yeah, the answer is nobody. Because I'm going to guess if there was a team that really wanted Jonas Valanciunas to be a starter, he wouldn't have signed for $10 million a year to be the Wizards' backup. Just a hunch. Hey, you can go to a good team, JV, and be a starter, or you can be the backup on the worst team in the NBA. Yeah, let me be the backup. I'm not really sure that would be a likely scenario, yeah? So, also, the Valanciunas scenario in Washington is one of the biggest, this is probably not the right term. I don't know. I'm not the smartest man around. Second, maybe. But when we talk about, terms, cognitive dissonance, I think this is the right term. You know what? And I hate when I say a term because I think it's right, but I'm not 100% sure. It's like the word serendipity. I'm going to go and check out what cognitive dissonance means. You know what? Your boy nailed it. Spot on. Cognitive dissonance. Because there will be people who will comment on this video or other videos and go, Josh, the reason that Malcolm Brogdon's playing these minutes is trade showcase, so they can trade him away. They're just going to show the league what he can do. And so they're getting him out, they're playing him minutes, and then they'll play the young guys later so they can just get value back. And I'll say, okay, but what about his teammate who's in literally the exact same position and they are cutting Jonas Valanciunas' minutes? Do they not need to trade showcase Jonas Valanciunas? These are both 30-plus veterans who have started for many years in the NBA. But one of them we need to trade showcase, the other one we don't. So like every narrative in the NBA, contract year, revenge game, hometown bump, college town bump, birthday bump, trade showcase, preserving a player for a trade, injury out of nowhere, which means a trade is coming. They're all garbage. They're all garbage. And having the same situation for two players on the same team and one player being bubble wrapped to preserve for a trade and the other one being showcased for a trade is pure cognitive dissonance. We all try and grab a reason to validate what we believe. Anyway, so Valanciunas, I don't think he's going anywhere and starting. He might squeeze a couple of extra minutes out somewhere, and he can have good games in limited minutes. But it's very hard to hold a reserve center who might play 15 minutes a night. That is just very hard to do in most standard formats. Let's talk about some hot players. Larry Nance is cooking. Now, he's also a weird player. Because we have talked Larry Nance and the virtues of the big fella for years. Man, this guy's really good at fantasy. His numbers are always awesome. And then something weird happens and it doesn't pan out. And at the moment, Okongwu's out, so Nance was getting 0 minutes. He was on the Justin Champagny plan. And now he's the backup center. In the first game, he played 31 minutes. It was an overtime game, and he shot 83% from three, and the numbers went through the roof. And you go, wow, that's crazy. Larry Nance won't continue to do that, but that's crazy. We look at it. The second game, Larry Nance came out, played 24 minutes as the reserve, split the minutes with Capella, and then blocked 3 shots, which also he does not do, ever. So he's come out and had these 2 outlier big performances in weird categories that makes his numbers look awesome. What the usual Larry Nance situation is incredibly high field goals, strong rebounder, out of position passing, and good steals. And yet he's made it through threes and blocks so far. So yeah, at the moment, you roster Larry Nance, but I don't think it's a long-term thing. He's playing really well. It's also, and my brain, the way that it would work, would look at this and go, well, but those 2 things are all both completely random garbage numbers that just aren't a real thing. But yeah, do it. But understand it's going to blow up. Bones Hyland is the 76th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. Usually I use a 1 week reporting period here, but because of the absence of games across the last 2 weeks, we're using 2 weeks. The big stiffy's only played 3 games over that time frame, and he was really good in it. But one of them, Harden, was out, one was Powell out, and the other one was Porter was out. But just remember to keep an eye on Bones Hyland, just in case there are longer-term injuries, because the man still can put up numbers. He just doesn't get to play enough. Jaden McDaniels, the 86th ranked player, the streaming legend Jaden McDaniels. It has been a really good stretch for him. I don't trust it as a long-term hold, but as always, you can have him, not a problem. Just don't trust it long-term. Timothy John McConnell, the 89th ranked player. We see now with the return of Ben Shepherd and the impending return of Aaron Neesmith, it's going to be hard for McConnell to play 20 a night. Got to be an elite stream guy, but that's about it. Tamani Kamara is the 100th ranked player. He was trending down. He was moving to like 28 minutes a night, and now he's back to 31, 32 as they deprioritize Avdia and Scoot, which again seems crazy, but they are. Kamara's value, though, is really baked into the steals. We love what he does. He's a very, very strong defender, but it is baked into steals, but they're good numbers. And then the 103rd ranked player is Royce O'Neal, who is the guy that started for Devin Booker, not Grayson Allen, and now Allen is dealing with a concussion evaluation, so O'Neal is just going to have to play a lot, and I actually think that that is worth a grab, especially with a Christmas Day game coming up as well, where he's going to have to play. So some good numbers there. What about some injury replacement guys that might last a week, a month, 2 years, a day, I don't know. Spencer Dinwiddie, with Luka Doncic out, has been very good the last 2 games. Quentin Grimes was also awesome in the last one. Dinwiddie's got the added advantage of being a worse player than Grimes, but also an ability to get assists. And as long as Doncic is out, you can stream in Dinwiddie. I put Shake Milton on this list because the first game after the Schroeder trade, Milton barely played. He did have foul trouble, but he was also like the 9th guy in off the bench. But that has changed. Keon Johnson is struggling a little bit. Cam Thomas remains out. Zaire Williams remains out. And Milton's minutes are pushing up, like 29 minutes or so. I don't think he's a 12-team league guy. And I think when Thomas returns, it's going to kill anything that he can do. But like we talked about with Simmons earlier, who knows what's going to happen with Simmons? And then Milton probably will have to play. So just a name to watch in a deep league ad. I put Wendell Carter Jr. here because I talked a lot about Goga earlier with the Moe Wagner injury. But the injury also helps Wendell. Does it mean that he's going to be playing way more minutes now? Not sure. I'm not sure that means that. But what it does mean is that he's able to keep the floor safe. He's a clear 14-team guy, Wendell Carter, and probably is a 12. The other guy that I haven't really mentioned on this show, and I won't, but I'll do it now, is Tristan da Silva. Because John Isaac will maybe get a couple of minutes bump and play some extra center, but da Silva has played big minutes the last 3 games. 2 of them have been pretty good. I don't think that da Silva's a 12-team guy, but he's at least in the stream zone there, and maybe even like a 14-team guy to look at with the injuries. I've also got Cole Anthony here. He cooked last game. He was way better than Mr. Black. Because, again, I don't think Anthony Black is a very good player. Simple. I don't. And he's incredibly inconsistent. So is Cole. And Cole remains one of those guys that I sit there and go, just someone give him a chance. I really think he could be solid. Solid. Not good. Solid. It was awesome last game from him with Suggs out and with Wagner out. And then that need for a second unit shot creator is way up again. You lose Franz, you lose Paolo, you lose Moe Wagner. Who is creating shots? And now Jalen Suggs is out. If you wanted to take a short-term look at Cole Anthony, again, we did it last week, and it did nothing for us. And it might do nothing again. But these are the reason I like to sometimes go slow and explain some of the reasons in my head is so that you can see both perspectives. One perspective is he's shit. I get that perspective. The second perspective is who is generating a shot? Who is it? It's not Mo. It's not Franz. It's not Paolo. And it might not be Jalen Suggs because he's currently out. Who is getting a shot off? And the answer is like Corey Joseph. No. He's bad and he's Canadian. which are synonyms. It's Cole Anthony. So if you wanted to take a crack, like, okay, but I can also see Suggs coming back and this man playing 10 minutes again. Trace Jackson-Davis, also very good in the last game. No one's denying that Trace Jackson-Davis has got an ability to be a fantasy asset in the minutes. He does it. And last game he started, played like 25 minutes and cooked. Fantastic. But when Draymond returns, does he go back and play 10 minutes, 14 minutes? I don't think that Draymond's necessarily a long-term absence here, but TJD was interesting. And we at least keep an eye on that. In terms of like permanent production, his permanent production, way better than like Wendell Carter Jr. Way better, but it's more variable here. And the last name here is maybe just a real short-term one, but with Emmanuel quickly out, with Davion Mitchell maybe not playing, Jamal Shed. This one is really for the double Onyx, Diamond, Titanium, Platinum leagues. Shed is a Davion Mitchell clone, but better. Like the new and improved version. Steals, assists, maybe some threes. And I wish they just give him minutes. But there's a chance he gets an increased load giggity during this game. At least for one game. So Jamal Shed, just a name to keep an eye on there. The last part of the show are 6 other names that I think are worth mentioning. Scott Pippen was very good yesterday. No surprise. Demetrius Morant was out, and then Marcus Smart lasted 9 minutes. And Marcus Smart lasting 9 minutes is a pretty common refrain. That's what she said. But while Morant is out, Pippen's worth it. And when those guys play, he's absolutely nowhere near worth it. And he's one of those guys that it's impossible to stash in a standard league configuration, a 10-3 or 10-4, start a bench. Can't do it. But if you've got a 10-7, if you've got a roto, if you've got a games cap, if you've got a weekly league, then that is a premium stash that you just hold on to. Because you don't have to use him all the time. And then when the opportunity arises, there you go. I'm going to put Brandon Pajemski here as well because his last 2 games have been much better, but I'm not believing. I'm not buying in. They've been good. Dennis Schroeder's games have not been good. Buddy Hield, drop. Schroeder, I'll give it one more for Dennis, but again, my preconceived notion after the trade was Schroeder will be a drop. And it's been 2 stinkers. One more, and I'm out. Pajemski, good. Don't trust it. Not adding. There's 4 rookies I want to talk about here. With DeAndre Ayton back, Donovan Clingan's playing 12 minutes. That shouldn't be a massive surprise to anybody because for the majority of the season, Donovan Clingan has played 12 minutes. Now, I know there are many people out there who believe Clingan is a star and they just need to be playing him more. But like I have said many times, I think that if Donovan Clingan ever got to be as good as DeAndre Ayton as a player, that is an outlier level of outcome for him. I don't think he's going to be that good. He's definitely not going to be as good of an offensive player as Ayton. He will obviously be way better defensively. He already is. But I think if the Blazers are able to get a DeAndre Ayton level player out of Donovan Clingan, they'd be absolutely thrilled. So he is barely playing. 12 minutes a night. I can easily see him playing 25 minutes a night for 2 months this season. But can you deal with it? And only you can make that determination. But the 12 minutes is 12 minutes for a reason. The next rookie is Dalton Connect. And I cannot believe that 16 picks went, and 16 teams, maybe not 16 teams, because I think a couple of teams picked twice in there. Let's say 14 teams allowed the Lakers to get, a top 5 demon from this class. Anyway, Connect played 4 minutes in the last game, remains bad, and is old, and is jackable.
Get that garbage out of here.
He might actually turn into a viable rotation piece in the NBA, totally fine, but we're not rostering him. The archetype of that player is relatively clear in fantasy. If you need big minutes, elite shooting, which is unsustainable, and good usage to be a fantasy guy, then you know what? You're just not a good fantasy player. And I think that's what Connect is. The next name is a little bit different because I actually believe that from watching this rookie class, which is not good, and I don't really think we've had many of the rookie truthers making many statements about that recently. I think there is a real shot that Khalil Ware, Superman, might actually end up, and I think I had him 12th in my class, 11th maybe. I think I might be wrong. I think he's got a real shot at being a top 5 guy. Now, I say this because they traded Tom Bryant for nothing. They said, Tom, just get out of here. And then last game, Kevin Love was not available, and Khalil Ware was the backup to Bam Adebayo. Now, there were dreams which were very lofty and honestly misguided from people in the offseason there. They'll just start Ware and Bam together. I was like, okay, probably not going to happen with Spoelstra, just not likely to happen. But he was Bam's backup last game. I thought Khalil was pretty good. So if I'm in a deeper league, I don't know that he's going to stick as the backup center at all because Love might return, but we're just watching it. And the last name is Steph Castle, who is also just nothing now. He's like a 23-minute a night player with horrendous shooting numbers, doesn't generate big counting stats, and unless multiple players now get hurt again in San Antonio, we're not going to hear from him in 12-team leagues. He's still going to be the favorite for Rookie of the Year. Who is actually the favorite now? So it's not going to be McCain. It's not Connect. Is it Missy? I still believe it's going to be Sarr that wins in the end. But, man, I don't know. Anyway, Steph Castle, droppable player. And that was a very convoluted, all over the shop waiver wire show. If you like all over the shop waiver wire shows, hit a thumb on it. Maybe don't. But what I want you to do as you head to Christmas, again, be kind. Do the things that you need to do to keep yourself in a good headspace and help others do the same. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.